If you could pick only 12 muscle building exercises to do for the rest of your life, what would you choose? If you had to minimise the amount of time spent in the gym for whatever reason, what exercises would stay in your routine and what exercises would you ditch? Now, as a natural bodybuilder with over 17 years of lifting experience, this is my list. These are my 12 exercises in no particular order. And what I'm going to do over the course of this video is strip this list away until I've only got one exercise left. If you enjoy the video or find it informative in any way, then please consider giving it a thumbs up. Subscribe to see more of my content. Any questions you might have, leave me in the comment section below. And check out my description box for any links to online coaching, Excel sheets, that kind of stuff. So without further ado, let's get into it. So in no particular order, these are my 12 exercises, the movements I deem to be most important in my progress going forwards. The best bang for your buck, if you will, in terms of exercise selection. So we've got barbell deadlift / dumbbell clean and press. Those two will be changing later on down the list. I'll explain why when I get there. Parallel bar dips, barbell squats, seated hamstring curls, barbell curl, easy bar or barbell overhead extensions, close grip pull down / chins, seated Smith / barbell press, seated calf raises, chest supported row, machine lateral raise, open arms specifically, dumbbell chest press. Now in terms of the split between muscle groups, it's going to be 3 leg exercises, 3 back movements, 2 chest, 2 delts, 1 bi and 1 tri. So what I'm going to do now, I'm going to strip away the movements. So we're going to start with what exercise I would take away if I could only do 11. Now the first one is machine shoulder lateral raises, in particular the open arm variant, which I believe is superior to both the elbow and pad machine and dumbbell raises. So it's really difficult to pick between this and machine pullovers for the back as my 12th exercise. The reason I picked this was simply because I already had quite a few back movements. So it's a fantastic movement. However, if I'm only to pick 11 exercises, then this has to be the first one that I remove. It's really the only isolation on the list. So it's surplus to requirements when I already have a heavy press and dips, which tax the shoulder to a certain extent. So this one is out. If I'm to do 11 exercises, this isn't going to be one of them. Now, if I'm to remove another movement, so I've only got 10 exercises left, I'm going to be getting rid of seated hamstring curl. And again, a fantastic exercise, one that I've really enjoyed lately, and I've seen some good hamstring growth from doing these consistently. Far superior to the lying hamstring in my opinion. However, it becomes surplus to requirements when I've already got deadlifts in my routine, and deadlifts are very versatile. For a slight change in the knee angle, I can accentuate more back, more hamstrings and glutes. I can go from regular deadlifts to Romanian deadlifts to stiff leg deadlift very easily between cycles. So the deadlift has to stay in for that very reason, and the seated hamstring curls are on the way out. The next exercise to go, leave me with 9 movements, is the chest supported row. Now, as good of an exercise as this is, as much as I enjoy using it, I don't think it's required when I'm already doing deadlifts and a vertical pull, both of which I believe are possibly slightly superior to the chest supported row. Now, the reason why I picked this as opposed to the bent over row is because I'm already doing deadlifts and squatting, both of which hit the lower back to a certain extent. So I don't really need another movement that's going to stress that area anymore. I'm much better off focusing on an isolated back exercise where I can focus on lats, rhomboids and traps more so. Now, if I weren't deadlifting, then the bent over row would probably be in this list and staying for longer, but it's not. So that's why this exercise has to go. Now, this is where things got really difficult for me. It took me a while to decide what exercises I wanted to keep in and what exercises I wanted to take out. So after much deliberation, I picked the next exercise to be removed, leaving me with only 8 exercises, was a dumbbell chest press. A great movement, but I'd already had dips in the routine. I already had a heavy shoulder press. Some of the other body groups that were still in this list only had 1 movement allocated to them. Chest is a reasonably small muscle group. Does it really need 2 movements? Probably not. So just logical step, that's the next exercise that goes. Now the reason this went compared to the dips will become obvious later on in the list, and I'll explain why when we get there. So I had to now whittle the list down to 7 movements, and it seemed like every passing exercise that I had to take out, this process got more and more difficult. So the exercise I chose to remove was the seated calf raise. So that meant I had no direct calf work. For where my physique is at the moment, it was more important to keep all of the above exercises in there as opposed to specific calf training. Seated calf raises are by far my favourite calf movement. You can load them up really, really heavy, and I've seen a good amount of growth from doing so. Sometimes the seated machine, or rather the standing machine, can be a little bit uncomfortable on the clavicle shoulder area, because of the padding. Also, there's a lot of stress on the lower back, which sometimes limits the amount of weight that you can use. Whereas the seated machine really hits the calves only. Assuming the pads are comfortable enough, you can go very, very heavy. There are so many calf exercises, but for me, that is the number one. But unfortunately, it's got to go to make room for other exercises that I deem more important. Now, as difficult as this little exercise is, it's really going to be helpful for your exercise programming, thinking about what movements are essential for pushing your physique forward and what's maybe surplus to that. Long term, you're likely going to benefit from doing less in the gym than too much. So it helps to think about what exercises you can take away from a routine rather than what you can add in and get yourself in a position where you're probably doing too much work. Now, this one was super difficult. It took me a while to figure out what exercise I was going to take out to leave only 6 movements. I decided with Smith / barbell seated press. The reason for that is I've got dips in the routine still, which are going to tax the shoulders to a certain extent. But taking this movement out came at a cost. I decided to change one of my remaining movements, the deadlift, to dumbbell clean and press, which I'll go over in a little bit. It'll become more obvious as the list gets smaller. But yeah, that's the movement that I had decided to take out. Now, the reason why this exercise was in as opposed to overhead press, clearly overhead press is a good movement. It wasn't an easy decision to make. But I think if I spent more time in the past with the seated press as opposed to overhead press, my shoulders would be bigger. I've done high frequency overhead press work in the past. I've got my overhead press up to 90 and beyond, but I didn't feel like it gave me much in the way of delt development. I felt like I became very efficient and very effective at the overhead press, but I didn't see that carryover. I noticed growth in my upper chest because of the excessive lean back. Because of the technical standpoint, you do get better. I think if I had done more work seated and spent more time focusing on strict shoulder strength progressive overload where you're in a fixed trajectory, I would see probably more muscular growth. So that was the reason why that movement was in as opposed to the overhead press, as good of an exercise as it is. So the next exercise to go, leaving with only 5 movements, had to be the easy bar / barbell overhead extensions. The reason for that is that I've already got dips in the routine. They're still in this list and they hit the triceps very effectively. There are more exercises still in that list that tax multiple muscle groups, so they have to stay in comparison to these isolation type movements that only tax maybe one muscle. So as much as I like arm training and as much as I want to focus on arms, they're not going to give me as much bang for my buck compared to the exercises list. So as the list stands, I've got 5 movements left. It's the squat, it's the dumbbell clean and press, it's chins, dips, and the barbell curls. Now, the reason why the barbell overhead extension was chosen in comparison to, say, bar pushdown, which is a fantastic movement, is simply because the pushdown mimics the dipping action. It's very similar in the way it works compared to the overhead extension that places a massive amount of stretch on the tricep head. And I think that combination between the two worked really well. So that's why I picked that over the heavy bar pushdowns. The next exercise to go had to be the barbell curls. As much as I didn't want to remove this exercise, one of my favourites, there are just other more important movements still in this list, multi-joint exercises that hit multiple muscle groups as opposed to just one. So it's a logical choice. The barbell curls had to go, leaving me with only squat, dumbbell clean and press, dips and chins. And this list is looking very similar to Mike Mentzer's consolidation routine. So maybe he was onto something. Obviously thought very logically about what exercises hit what muscle groups. The reason dumbbell clean and press is in as opposed to deadlifts is because I'm whittling this list down even further eventually. So you'll see in a little bit. But yeah, barbell curls, one of my favourite bicep movements. You can't really go wrong with it. Sometimes causes a little bit of issue in the elbow, golfer's elbow, wrist tendonitis possibly because of the supination. But funnily enough, that supination is really what makes the movement so damn good. That wrist position, it just hits harder than the easy bar. If you've got problems with the joints, then you can switch to an easy bar. Generally clears the worst of it up because it's a little bit more forgiving. It's quite versatile. You can do cheat curls with it, which I've done in the past to great effect. It allows you to train the top portion of the movement, so the last quarter, the last half, which generally you're a lot stronger in with heavier loads. You get the best of both worlds. Definitely something that I really place a lot of importance upon. But unfortunately, that has to go Now this next movement I had to take out, not an easy one to decide, but seemed like a logical choice because of the change that I made earlier in the list where I changed deadlifts to clean and press. That has then allowed me to remove dips now. So we've only 3 movements left. It's squat, close grip pull down / chins, and dumbbell clean and press. Now had I not made that change earlier, I would not feel as confident as taking dips out of the routine. It's a brilliant movement, hits the chest, hits the front delts and the triceps. Pretty versatile as well in terms of what area you want to focus on. More upright for the tris, more bent over for the chest, etc. So it is a superb exercise. I used to do these a lot when I first started training. Got the weights up pretty high. Had some time off, but recently got back into them and really enjoying them. A brilliant exercise, but unfortunately they have to be taken out. It's a logical step in this next list reduction. So we've only 3 movements left: the squat, the dumbbell clean and press, and the chin / close grip pull down. The next exercise that I had to take out was the chin or close grip pull down. I guess it's a little bit cheeky saying those 2 movements, so I'm going to pick one, and it's going to be the close grip pull down. That would be my preferred exercise. It's very subtle, there's not much in it, but I find for me personally the chins seem to be more difficult to perform. They seem to aggravate the joints a little bit more, the elbows, the wrist, especially with a supinated position. There are more grips available for the pull down that seem more comfortable. At the moment I'm using like an open palm grip. Again, it's supinated, but I don't have to squeeze the bar, so my elbows are saved. I can perform that movement very comfortably. With the chins, it's a lot harder to do. As good as they are, they just seem more problematic for me. So I'm going to have to go with the close grip pull down, but unfortunately, this has to now be removed, which leaves only the squat and dumbbell clean and press. Dumbbell clean and press hits the back to a certain extent with the clean, so it still is taxing some of the back musculature, and that's why this exercise goes as opposed to those 2. Okay, now we've only got 2 exercises left. It's a toss-up between the barbell squat and the dumbbell clean and press. What exercise has to go, leaving only one winner? So when we're talking about barbell squat, we're talking about high bar specifically. I've never done low bar. I'm not going to waste my time on it. I don't believe it's anywhere near as effective for muscular growth as the high bar squat. I want to see quad growth. I don't want to see hip growth or glute growth in particular. But it is versatile and you can focus on different areas depending on your form. So it's a brilliant exercise. It's my favourite leg movement. For me, it's the most effective leg exercise, bar none. No, you don't need to do squats to build big legs, but I'm pretty sure you're going to have an easier time of it if you do squats and you get good at them, especially the high bar. Unfortunately, this exercise has to go. If you do squats and you spend a lot of energy on squats, you're going to get big legs, but you're not going to get big arms, you're not going to get big chest or back. It doesn't work like that. Contrary to this kind of popular belief that doing squats creates growth in the upper body, you know, it releases growth hormone, all that kind of rubbish. It's not true. Your physique is going to look very strange if you only do squats and no upper body work. Brilliant for the lower body, but not very good for the upper body, and that's why it has to go when we're comparing that to the dumbbell clean and press, which is a fantastic full body movement. So the winner for me has to be the dumbbell clean and press. It just trains so much muscle mass in comparison to the barbell squat. If you think about it logically, you're going to hit the quads, the glutes, hammies to a certain extent, depending on how low you get with the clean. You're going to hit your stomach and lower back and upper back on the clean, as well as your biceps and forearms, because you have to grip the dumbbell. Then you can hit your shoulders, your upper chest to a certain extent, depending on how much you lean back on the press, as well as the quads again if you're using push press, and then the triceps on the lockout. So there's a massive amount of muscle mass that's being used, and that's why for me it's number one on this list. Now I'm not saying it's the best bodybuilding exercise, because it doesn't really allow you to focus specifically on anything. It's more of a full body movement that's very effective if you're only in the gym for a short period of time. So if I could only do one exercise, let's say 10 minutes, I would do the dumbbell clean and press for sure. Whether that be with one dumbbell or 2, obviously with 2 you'd have to lower the weight per bell. But it really is a fantastic exercise, and that's why I swapped out deadlift to this, because it allowed me to then remove other important exercises earlier on. Without the dumbbell clean and press in the routine, it would have been much harder to do that, and at some point I would have had an unbalanced list of exercises. So it really is a good exercise, criminally underrated. I'd recommend it for when you're in a rush, when you want to achieve, you know, a good amount of training and get big and strong looking without actually spending much time in the gym. So obviously dumbbell clean and press was put into this list because I knew at some point I'd have to whittle that number down to just one movement. And that was the exercise I wanted to pick because it trained the most musculature. It's as simple as that. Now if we're to do away with exercise lists and numbers for a second and just focus on time in gym, what's the best bang for your buck in terms of routine for minimal time spent in the gym? Let's say you wanted to be in and out in 25 minutes guaranteed. What would you do? Every day of the week I would pick barbell high squat and then chin and dip supersets without fail. I'd spend 5 to 10 minutes warming up. I'd do one working set on the back squat, followed by 2 or 3 warm-ups on the chins and dips, superset style, and then one working set on that. Now, assuming you're training with enough intensity, you're close enough to failure, and you're able to progressively overload these lifts consistently, within a few months you'll see massive changes to your physique. It's that simple. Get the basics right first. 25 minutes, done and dusted, easy. Bring a dipping belt in with you so you can add more weight on the chins and dips. Remember that chins, generally speaking, are going to be harder than dips, not always, but for most people. So I would start with chins, then follow that up with dips, and maybe have weights close by so you can add more for the dips to reach that kind of intensity you want within the desired rep range. Because otherwise you'll be too light and you'll be doing 6 reps on the chins and then 15 reps on the dips. You're better off kind of being more even in terms of your rep ranges. So that's what I would do. So I hope you enjoyed the video, guys. If you did, then please give it a thumbs up. Subscribe to see more of my content. Check out the description box for links to my coaching, Excel spreadsheets, all of my social media stuff. So if you've got any questions as well about any of the topics discussed in this video, just leave a question in the comments section. I'll get back to you as soon as possible. Thanks for watching once again. Stay strong.